in this first session. Janez is going to cover vulnerable and outdated components, identification and authentication failures, and software and data integrity failures. And then we're going to take a short break, and Greg is going to join us, and he's going to be covering security, logging and monitoring failures, as well as infrastructure components, which again is outside of the OWASP top 10, but it's a really critical component of building applications, the intersection of software and the hardware underneath it. I'll hand it over to you, Janez. Thanks again for joining us, everybody.
Day 3, yeah, let's get started. So as Michael mentioned, in this first session today, we have 3 topics. First one is about vulnerable and outdated components, and let's get right into it. So we are all aware that nowadays, when we're building software, we almost always depend on a bunch of outside libraries, plugins, modules, etc. And that's all nice and great because it helps us be productive and develop faster and be more efficient. But it also comes with its own set of problems. And in the context of security, obviously, if we are using dependencies with security problems, then these security problems will affect our application as well. So we have to be careful how we handle this, and most importantly, think about it. And my first thought or recommendation would be is that we should think when we are considering bringing in a new library, a new dependency, we should really think through and decide whether we really need it or we can achieve the same result some other way. Because if we would need to bring in something huge and complex to just solve a very small business problem, something that could be done in a few lines of code of our own, then it probably doesn't make sense to use external libraries. And I do think that we've grown used to just pulling in stuff and not thinking about it. In fact, I'm dealing with the problem about an external dependency on a client project. It's an API web application, and we are importing a lot of data into it, and we're using a PHP library for batch importing data from various sources, and it works great. We love it. It works very well, but it seems to be unmaintained at this point, and it prevents us from upgrading to Symfony 6 because of its version constraints. And now we are faced with this decision where we have this component that we use a lot and it works well, but it blocks us from doing some other thing that we really need to do. And we definitely don't want to refactor all our import code, but we also, if the only solution at the moment that we have is to fork that library and fix it so it works within Symfony 6, but then we effectively ended up maintaining our own custom project, which is exactly what we wanted to avoid in the first place. And to be honest, I don't have any better solution for that, except I'm planning to get in touch with the maintainer and see if we can work together or something like that. And this is a realistic possibility every time when you pull in some library, especially if it's a smaller library that doesn't have a huge community behind it, maybe just a single developer working on it. It's very likely then that in 2 or 3 years' time, it will be unmaintained. And then when it's unmaintained, if there are security problems, it's very likely that they won't be resolved. So another thing besides, really thinking through when we're deciding to use external dependencies is to maintain continuous inventory of all the components that we have, both backend and front-end. Especially in Drupal, I feel that sometimes we forget about front-end dependencies in our teams, because like team development tends to be really active when projects are being built, and then in the maintenance phase, maybe it's just one CSS rule that needs to change now and then, or things like that, and we completely forget about updating all the JavaScript dependencies that those teams might have. So having an inventory and being aware which versions of packages you're running, and comparing that to like most recent version, and being subscribed to security advisories, being engaged with the tools, with the community behind the tools that you're using. Another very good practice is using tools to check your packages, to check your dependencies. In Drupal, we have a drush PM security command, which will check your composer lock file and find all Drupal modules and themes in there, and check that list against the security advisory database. And it will let you know if you're running anything that is not secure. And for other PHP libraries, there is this tool called local PHP security checker, which is it's a command line tool that will do a similar thing than drush PM security, but for all your PHP dependencies that you have in your project. And you could the best thing to do is to incorporate these tools into your CI/CD pipeline, and let your deploys or merges fail if there are dependencies with security problems. This way, you will immediately be notified and be aware that you need to upgrade something. When it comes to Drupal, we have this Wednesday security window when typically security updates, security advisories will be published on Wednesday. It's sometime afternoon for me in Europe. It's probably morning for you on East Coast. And this way you can be prepared. You know that on Wednesday, something might be published that needs your attention. This way you can keep your projects up to date all the time. If there is like something that is highly critical about to come out, the security team will usually give an advance notice so that we can be prepared and really quickly patch our projects. So this is also something to be to pay attention to. Like if there is prior announcement that something highly critical is coming out, we should really be ready. One example was Drupal a few years back was such case. And related to that, if your project and modules and plugins in your projects are up to date, then usually applying security patches is quite easy. You just upgrade from last version of Drupal core or module to the most recent one that was just published, and you're done. But if you are not up to date, then updates might become tricky. And then you have this decision to make whether to try and do this a little bit larger and more complex upgrade, or to try to create a patch for the version that you're running that fixes the security problem. Usually, you will need to create this patch on your own, which means more work, more testing. So you've created a much more busy Wednesday that you would want to by not following the most recent versions of the modules and other dependencies that you have. And this obviously doesn't apply only to Drupal modules, but also every other dependency. As soon as you stop following and you fall behind, it's usually much harder to get back to most recent versions. And getting back to the project that I mentioned earlier, that's exactly what happened to us there, because we had this problem. Now this single library prevented us from updating a lot of other things, because we have different libraries depending on same packages and things like that. So we've fallen behind, and now this upgrade is way more complex than it should be. And I wish we'd done it sooner. Then if we go to JavaScript world, I mentioned these command line tools to check the packages that you're running. In npm, you have npm audit command, which basically does the same thing. So yeah, once again, it is recommended to include these tools into your CI/CD pipelines so that you're notified immediately when something important is available. Another thing that's really nice, it's GitHub's Dependabot. This is like a bot that lives on GitHub and will scan through your repos and figure out if you're running any dependencies that are not secure anymore. And if it finds something like that, it will automatically create a pull request for you. And this is an example of one of those. It's asking us to bump post CSS to a newer version, and we can see the release notes and change log and which commits are included in the update. And there are also commands for the bot, so we can ask the bot to rebase the pull request and do all sorts of other things, which is really helpful, both because it's easy to update things, and also because we have some other tool that notifies us when something is available. So the Dependabot is definitely something you should look at if you're on GitHub. It's highly recommended. Yeah, and we should not forget about lower level software on our stacks, like LAMP stack, and also other services that run on our operating system, such as like Varnish or DNS servers, CDN servers, virus scanners, things like that. So all these services and then Apache and MySQL or Mongo if you're using MongoDB. All those things, like everything that we're running, we should be subscribed to security advisory notifications and make sure that we are following what's going on and updating things as it's needed. And that's why I guess a lot of people opt out not to run their own servers themselves, because it's quite a lot of work to do so. Especially like sometimes people figured that running their own hosting would let them save some money, but when you account for the cost of maintaining these servers, it usually doesn't make sense. Yeah, so in order to see Drupal security advisories, there is this web page on drupal.org/security where all the advisories are published. You can subscribe to newsletter and you will get notifications in your email inbox every Wednesday. And there's also a Twitter account, and it might be that there are some other sources. I personally use email, so that's what I'm most familiar about. So the main take from this topic should be that we really need to think about components and dependencies. And when we're deciding what we're going to use, always think about will it be maintained and how we will handle security advisories and in general problems that might arise related to all those projects that we're bringing in. Have any experience that you want to share or any questions?
Do you use these kind of components in your CI/CD systems? We'll definitely encourage you guys to check them out, regardless of the language or the tooling you're using, NPM, PHP, most languages and systems have these kinds of components.